I first launched my products, we were going to be on Fifth Avenue in this huge window of a store called Bendel's. And so I got on a plane to New York and I'm like, oh, this is it, right? And I got to Fifth Avenue and I saw Kate Somerville has landed, and it was these huge windows on Fifth Avenue. And I thought there was going to be this sense of, oh, I made it, contentment. And it was the exact opposite. It was, holy shit, I'm now going to have to stay here. And I'm going to have to fight to stay here.
I'm Jordan Murphy, and you're listening to Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy. On this show, I talk to friends, family, colleagues, you name it, about the shared experience we all have with breakdowns and breakthroughs, how they happen, when they happen, and how we navigate through them to ultimately find success in our lives. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming a friend, Kate Somerville. Many of you may know Kate as someone who's been caring for people's skin for over 25 years. She opened her iconic skincare clinic in the heart of Hollywood about 14 years ago. Kate is a mother, a wife, a coach, a writer, and a very successful entrepreneur. Katie very generously took the time out today to talk to us about the breakthroughs that she's had in her life and how they've paved her way to success with her career, as well as breakthroughs in her marriage, her personal life, and even how the fires that ravaged Santa Barbara recently were instrumental in helping to transform her life. So much more. Simply put, Katie and I talked a lot, and it was a pleasure. So, Katie, or Kate, I've never actually asked you which you prefer. Kate, Katie?
Yeah.
What do you prefer?
Well, I'm Katie in my personal life,
Okay.
But Kate Somerville has always been kind of my business name. I got lucky. I married a great guy with a great last name. And so I was like, Kate Somerville sounds really good.
So, gosh, where do we start? I mean, you and I have known each other quite a while. And let me just stop and say thank you for doing this interview with me.
Absolutely.
And I met you over 10 years ago.
Way over, like more like 17 or 15 or 7. No, because Che wasn't born yet. So 17.
Dylan and I have only been married 15 years.
Yeah.
So it would be within that period of time that you and I met. And I believe it was up at Adam's old house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And obviously through Landa and, we go way back. The thing is, though, I never really had an opportunity to really get to know you over the years, except through Adam or through, obviously, your success with your company.
Yeah. I met you. You were doing a big show. I cannot remember. It was like the hottest show. And I met you at Adam's house in Hollywood, and we were at a pool party. And I don't know if you and Dylan I don't know if you were married yet, honestly. I think maybe you guys were still dating, or maybe you just got married.
Very possible. Very possible.
Yeah.
And then I remember you did have a little person with you at one of the parties also in the pool.
Yeah, that's my little guy. Well, he's not little anymore. He's almost 6'3".
Yeah. Right.
He's 16 now. But yeah, he was probably really little then.
So, this show is obviously about breakthroughs. And what's so interesting to me to learn a little bit more about you is how your company came about is somewhat through a breakdown and breakthrough of sorts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is not uncommon. I mean, I love listening to and mining for the pivotal milestone moments in people's lives.
Yeah.
What defines us? And I was getting to know a little bit more about you on the internet because that's what we do. And the idea that you struggled with skin issues from a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And then your mom basically put goat's milk in your bathtub.
Yep.
And I mean, it's like those moments.
Yeah.
They define us.
For sure. I mean, I always believe, like, for me, like, my biggest nemesis was eczema growing up. Like, every emotion came through my skin, and eczema was kind of the bane of my existence as a child. And, just itchy, stingy. You just never felt comfortable in your own skin. And so I feel like that gave me such a insight into what people feel with their skin. You know, like, I don't know if you've ever had a huge pimple or a cold sore, you don't feel like your best self. And I can really relate to that for people. And also just trying to find my own remedies, you know, because I'd go to dermatologists and they would just give me drugs, basically prescription cortisones, and they're not good for you over time. So just me kind of trying to figure out, okay, like when I eat this or when I stress or when I put these kinds of products on, I feel better. So I feel like that kind of shaped my journey with skincare, honestly. And sure. Just also the compassion of like looking at someone and just knowing what they feel like when they're not their best, you know?
Well, you were literally not comfortable in your own skin.
Own skin. Yeah. Well, and still sometimes that's the case on a whole nother level.
Yeah. And it's really great though, that you were able to capitalize in a substantial way and not in an inauthentic way. I mean, you created a very successful company in a highly competitive market.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny because, you know, I was a kid starting this. I think I was 20 when I started skincare. Well, I was earlier than that, but I started my business when I was 20. And, you know, it's funny, I got into bed with a lot of big companies that wanted to buy my brand. And, you know, people would ask me, you know, come to this, you know, CEW, like cosmetic women's, you know, in business. And, you know, I kind of refrained from doing that in the beginning because I really was a technician inside the room and I was doing what I knew worked in the room. And I didn't want to be, I didn't want the outside kind of influencing me. I wanted my client to influence me. And I come from the medical side of the world. And so I think that's what made, you know, my brand and my product special because we actually work on skin and I've been in that room for 20 years. I know what ingredients work. I know the combination of things that work that transform skin. And so it was interesting because then going into being a bigger brand in retail and those kinds of places, you know, it came from a really authentic place and it still does. And I think that's what makes us unique in the marketplace because when people really do try our products, they go, oh my God, this actually works, you know? So, and I really want to keep it that way. I want to try to keep it really authentic and really, you know, the stuff inside the jar works.
My wife is a disciple.
Oh, good. Yeah. You know, I just feel like if it's not real and it doesn't work, then I can't endorse it just because I just feel like I know what it feels like to be uncomfortable, right? In my skin. So I want to heal people. And so if I can't heal people, I can't put my name on it. So that's kind of where I'm at in this stage of my business.
So the business has been over 20 years then.
Yeah. Well, I've been in this business probably, I think, 26 years, but the company, Kate Somerville, has existed for 14 now. Okay, got it. So, yeah. I opened Kate Somerville on Melrose Place in 2004. Got it. So, yeah. I should do the math, but
how do you do the day? What do you do in the day-to-day with the company? Are you overseeing it? Are you at the store?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still creating products with my, you know, I have an incredible staff, especially at the clinic. The clinic staff has been with me for 13 and 14 years, some of them. And we just, you know, come up with things that really we see the need of our client. And so, I still guide that. I'm all over the world now, talking about skin health and, really transforming people's skin. And two, like just daily, like I'll go to Starbucks and I'll see a kid with acne and I'll be like, hey, try this, and I'll give them a sample. So I just try and just wherever I can see somebody needs help, I just try and give my gift. I don't know. It's funny. It started out with not so much of a gift, but now I look at it as a gift, having eczema, so like that bad thing kind of turned into a good thing.
It seems to be the case that many people who come from substantial upset can transform something like that into something extraordinary if they choose to. So I wanted to jump off with that little story because it's really what this podcast is all about. And
which even goes deeper because yeah. I grew up in an alcoholic family, like severe, to the point where my mom passed away at 62, homeless in Santa Barbara with not a tooth in her head. And just living through that was also a massive tragedy, but also, I had this really amazing mentor when I was in right end of high school, beginning of college. And her name was Barbara Wells. And she was this amazing woman that kind of always took in people that were kind of lost. And she had cancer. So she had been battling cancer for 12 years. And I just got so lucky that I was in her presence at the time I was. And she looked at me, and I was in college, and I was kind of going down a bad path. I was definitely drinking and doing, things I shouldn't be doing and kind of hanging out with the wrong crowd. And she just looked at me one day and she goes, you can choose. And I'm like, I can choose what? And she's like, you can choose to be miserable and go down the path of your mom and make that a victim, or you could choose to have a great life. And honest to God, Jordan, I didn't know I had a choice because I lived in so much chaos that I thought that was normal to me. And I sat with that and I was like, what do you mean I can choose? And she's like, it's your choice. It's your life. You can go down the lighted path or you can go down the dark path and be a victim and not have a good life. And I literally changed my life after that. I lived in Fresno. I didn't love Fresno. My dream was always to live on the ocean. And I had no money. I literally packed my little bug. I had this blue little bug. I packed it with everything I owned and I moved to a little town called Cambria. And I found this cute cottage. I ended up getting 3 waitress jobs. And I just decided, I'm going to live a good life. I'm not going to go down this bad path. And I just started looking for the light in my life. And, not to say it wasn't hard because my mom was still crashing and burning and I was trying to get her in rehabs. And my dad remarried somebody that, kind of took his attention away from me. So I was really on my own. I just decided this is how I want to live my life in the good path. And so that's when life started changing for me. It was baby steps to get there. I mean, it was one leap of faith at first, but then it was baby steps, oh, that's the wrong path. This is the right path. You could just feel it.
Completely. It's really just great that you had the experience, the ability to have that insight the way you did. Many people, it requires a catastrophic event or a bottoming out to have that kind of realization. But you had that realization when you were young from an outside source, a mentor. You heard it and you actually implemented it. You used it. And it's no surprise that because of that, you've had the success that you've had and that you've been able to maintain the success that you've had, especially in this business, in this town, Los Angeles, where you could have gotten caught up really easily, started buying your own press, and ego, take over, and there you go. And you could have gone a very different direction.
I mean, and that you can feel the bad root and the good root. And I just kept following the good signs. Like, and I always, and when I talk about business to people, especially entrepreneurs, you know, you dream something up, and then like I would literally ask for something in the universe. Like for me, it was like, I'm not good with numbers. You know, I didn't go to school for business. I'm an esthetician, so I need a CFO. And then literally I would find I would meet a CFO like the next day, you know, and if that wasn't the person, he knew somebody, you know. It was just like, it happened like that. And it would just brought like these really great people around me. And, you know, you just have to have the guts to say, okay, this is what I asked for, so I'm going to go for it, you know. And I have to say, it was scary. That was so scary. Like, you know, I got on QVC, and I had never been on television before. And I literally, the first time I was on QVC, the cameras rolled on, and I just felt myself so out of body. Like, oh my God, I hope I say the right things. And it was 8 minutes sell. And thank God we sold out in 4 minutes, and I didn't even remember the sell or what I said. I had to go back and look at it. It's kind of like your wedding day. You're like, did that happen? Because I was kind of in like a fog the whole day. But, you know, there was a lot of fear that I just kept conquering those fear moments. And that's kind of, I think in life, just being able to conquer those things that you're up against. It just takes courage. That's what I tell entrepreneurs. Just keep your passion alive, and then have the guts to go, okay, I'm going to try this. And as soon as I did that, everything that I needed started showing up, you know, whether it was a job or, you know, the money for rent, because I lived on, like, literally on the water. And that's when I found I wanted to be an esthetician. So I just followed like that good path in my dreams. And that's when my life really started to turn around for the better.
Such an inspiring story, because, you know, there's so much conversation these days about the law of attraction, right?
Yep.
And there's, I think there's oftentimes some misinterpretations of what the law of attraction is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I think about something, then I'll get it, which is a step, I believe, in the process.
It's a step. Like when you envision something, you know, and you visualize it, but then you have to have the guts to go get it. You know,
completely. I think you have to think about it, but I think you have to practice it. You have to absorb it in your cells, and you have to breathe it. You have to practice it daily. And it doesn't always happen necessarily. And this is kind of the frustrating part about it, I think, is that people have to come to terms with the fact that their purpose has to be aligned as well. And it sounds to me like you had the benefit, the good fortune of having alignment with your purpose.
I did. And, you know, I didn't know it at the time, though. You know, I didn't know eczema, the one thing that like caused me so much pain, was going to be the one thing that like I was able to have some success with, and also heal other people. Because honestly, like, that's what gets me going, is really the healing of someone else. It's so funny because I thought it was on the material side. When I first launched my products, we were going to be on 5th Avenue in this huge window of a store called Bindle's. And so I got on a plane to New York, and I'm like, oh, this is it, right? And I got to 5th Avenue, and I saw Kate Somerville has landed, and it was these huge windows on 5th Avenue. My products had landed in that store. And I thought there was going to be this like sense of, oh, I made it, contentment. And it was the exact opposite. It was like, holy shit, I'm now going to have to stay here, and I'm going to have to fight to stay here. And it wasn't the feeling of satisfaction. And it was really interesting for me to sit in that, because there was this other story where this one kid, his name was Andrew, an African-American kid. And this is when like VH1 was running us all the time about how we were healing skin with all these stars like Paris and Nicole Richie and Lindsay Lohan. And this kid had the courage to come to my clinic because he had the worst acne you've ever seen in your life. debilitating acne. And I remember him coming down the stairs with a hat and looking really uncomfortable. And he was sitting in some chairs. And I told the receptionist, I'm like, get him in a room right now. Like, get him out of his misery. And I saw his skin and I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to heal you. And, you know, he told me, you know, I don't come from money. My mom's a single mom. You know, I don't have the money to come here. And I'm like, forget it. Like, you don't need money here. We're going to take care of you. And my whole staff embraced this kid. And we healed this kid. I mean, he literally, and I love telling the story because here he came in with a hat. He couldn't even show his face. And literally 6 months into his treatment, he came down the stairs and opened the door and he was like, hey, bitches. Like, he was so himself. And he ended up being this incredible R&B singer. He like literally, he got recruited to be a model. His whole life changed when we cleaned up his skin. And I just remember like really realizing like that's what fed me was those moments, not the success moments of the material world. And once I kind of figured that out, the alignment came easier to me. Like, it wasn't about the accolades. It was more about keeping that authentic thing going of healing others.
Yeah, I think I hear compassion, I hear service, I hear generosity. I mean, at the bottom line, I think you've talked to anybody who's somebody who I want to have, you know, dinner with, someone I want to spend time with who's wealthy and successful. They will share that it's about being of service. It's about giving back. It's about gratitude and generosity. And again, you had the fortune of having that information delivered to you, and you actually heard it and listened to it and acted on it. And
for sure.
You've had success, obviously, as a result of that. And you've been married how long now?
So I've been married 21 years, May 3rd. So
wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. And that's been a journey too. You know, I married, to me, like the most amazing guy on the planet. He's a musician. You know, listen, has it been easy? Like, those of you that know a relationship, no. But you know what we did was we really allowed each other to make mistakes and to grow up together, because I met him when I was 28 and I think he was 32. And you know, listen, there was times when we grew apart. You know, I was running a business. He was taking care of our son, Che. So we had role reversal on top of that. And I'm just so grateful that God kept bringing us together when we did grow apart. But also, I look at him and I just respect his soul so much. And I'm like, listen, I needed to do some changing in our relationship. And I'm like, you're worth it. Like, you're worth me looking at my stuff. And I think he had the same thing. We were just worth getting through it. And I tell young people all the time, because I feel like marriage is so in and out these days. If you can get through and forgive your partner for not being who you want them to be in your mind and let them grow. And when you get to the other side of like those big mistakes happening and like the love we have now, it's unexplainable compared to the beginning. Like, you're really learning about each other. You're growing up. But when you stick it out with someone, like, there's something else that happens, a different kind of love. He can have a thought or I have a thought, and like, we say, oh my God, we're going to this place for lunch today. And I'm like, exactly. Like, we're like one now. It's so awesome. And I just tell young people, like, try and stick with it, because the rewards of sticking with it, even through really hard times, there's something on the other side that's so wonderful.
No,
you know?
I completely agree. You know, I've been married, over 15 years now, and we kind of had that 10-year transition, I remember, where you kind of feel like the rubber meets the road in another way. And I remember hearing also years ago, someone defined love in a way that just was so eloquent, and I loved it. and it goes to what you were saying earlier, which is love is to love someone for who they are and for who they are not.
Yeah.
And
yes.
to, like you said, to embrace that and to give up this expectation that this person is supposed to be perfect.
Yeah.
Because you're not. We're working this out together. And, you know,
totally.
I don't know about you and Landa, but when you guys met in your early days of dating, I mean, my wife and I, we knew each other for about literally a year before I proposed marriage, which was insane in my
Us too.
history.
1 year.
Yeah,
1 year.
That was insane in my history of dating.
Yeah.
That I was going to propose marriage to a woman I'd been dating for a year. But I did. And what I remember about it was that there was our relationship had this foundation and this glue to it that I knew would somehow sustain a relationship.
Yeah.
The love that we forged in the beginning of our relationship, I believe, is the reason we've been able to have the endurance, if you will, to see it all the way through to what you said, which is this the other side of it to a certain degree.
I know.
You know, don't give up on it and consider that there's something around the corner for you that you couldn't have predicted. And you talked about alcoholism and, you know, recovery and things like that.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, one of the things about recovery is to take the next indicated step, right? And if we just take the next indicated step and not concern ourselves with step 8, 9, 10, or 12, or 50, just take the next indicated step.
Yeah.
If we don't take the next indicated step, oftentimes the indicated step beyond it never reveals itself.
Yeah, for sure.
We have to be willing and patient enough to just put one foot in front of the other. So it's really awesome. And Landa is an awesome dude. And you guys,
yeah, he's so awesome. And I don't know if you know this, but we live in Santa Barbara, and we just recently went through major fires and floods, and the fires for us was the scariest thing. We stayed up for at least a week, and the fire came to the front of our house, and then 3 days later came to the back of our house. And it was the most frightening thing for me in the entire world, because 3 a.m, we're packing our animals and, you know, our stuff. 3 times in a row, we had to evacuate. Landa was like, I'm staying here and fighting it. And I'm like, well, if you're staying here, I'm staying here, because I'm not going to let you fight it alone. Luckily, it didn't come to that. We actually had to leave because of the smoke more. But what happened was we both got PTSD, and especially him, because he's like rock solid, my husband. But he actually, for the first time, felt instability and like fear, like after it was over, like he'd get these flushes through his body. And I just remember laying with him. We were in bed, and, you know, he's like, he was kind of paralyzed with fear at times in our days. And I would just lay with him, and I'm just like, feelings are like the ocean. And I learned this from my therapist, so I can't claim this, but she's like, it's like you going into the ocean and saying, okay, stop, waves. I'm tired of feeling these emotions. And I'm like, listen, these are waves of emotion. You're just going to have to sit in them for a minute and let them roll by and be uncomfortable. And then, you know, because before he would do other things to kind of numb them out. And he really faced that. And I, as a wife, I kind of just sat with him, and he's like, you know, I kind of feel like a monk. And I'm like, great, then monk it, you know, like literally monk it and get quiet. And it's so crazy too, because all of our stuff became like heavy. Like we ended up going through our house after the fires and like getting rid of tons of stuff. We had to like clear out some of our house just for the pure fact that when the fires came, like we were like rushing and throwing stuff in the car. And at the third time, I was, you know what? This stuff has no meaning to me. The third time I packed, I took very few things, and I'm like, let it burn. Like I'm so over stuff. I looked at my son, I looked at my animals, and I looked at my husband, and I'm like, that's all that matters in the world. And it's funny how it really cleansed us in many ways. It cleansed me and my husband's relationship, where we just look at each other now and we're just like, God, we're so lucky we found each other. And like the stuff, I ended up watching this. If your listeners, like if you watch, I love Netflix, but one of the best Netflix I've seen is something called Minimalism. And I watched that show after the fires because I'm like, I need to get rid of some stuff and live a little more simply. And that show, I cried the entire time because I noticed that I became a slave over our stuff, whether it's phones or clothes or shoes or furniture. And I'm like, I don't need any of this. And you get to be more free as you release the stuff.
Oh, God, it's such a uniquely amazing experience that most people will never have, which is this experience of like going through a fire, literally a fire, be challenged or be exposed to having to evacuate not once, but 3 times and have to actually go through that process. It's fantastic that you were able to get on the other side of it, the two of you, and see the
well, and we're the fortunate ones. I mean, we didn't lose our home. I mean, a lot of our community lost people. In fact, people are still missing in our community from the mudslides. So we are one of the fortunate, but I have to tell you, some of our friends that lost their houses, they're starting to come out of the other side and being like, God, we're changing our lives completely. In a way, it freed them to like, some of them are not rebuilding. They're kind of changing their lives completely. And then some are rebuilding, but they're different in a better way. They're like, they just realize what is important in life.
That's an inspiring breakthrough story right there.
Yeah, it's pretty intense what we went through, but I have to say, I'm so happy we went through it because Landon and I are so much better for it.
Do you guys like give each other high fives? You're like, God, we're awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean that. I don't mean in an ego way. I mean, like acknowledging each other as like, way to go.
Just this morning, we laid in bed and we've just been like, oh my God, we're so lucky we found each other. And we have some friends that are, newly together and they've had their issues with, they're divorced and they're dealing with this. And we just look at each other and we're just, oh my God, we're just so lucky that we have this love in this lifetime. And so we're just cherishing our time together and our energy together and how much we gel. And, I don't know. It just, when you go through that trauma, you just realize how precious those relationships are. Like, it's not about the climb or the success and those things are great in your life. Like, they give you I feel like money is just a source of creativity, right? But God, it's the relationships after you go through that really matter. When you go through that, you really realize it. Like, people can tell you, like, I can say these words to people until you really slow down and get it and look in someone's eyes. And this weekend, I had some really close friends over, and I've lost a lot of people in my life through death. And our lives have changed so much where I don't see certain people. And I just stopped and I said, we all have to just sit in this moment right now because it's such a happy moment and we're all together. Don't take these moments for granted because they're amazing moments,
And it really does require us to stop though, because, you hear stories one after the other, people on their deathbeds, and they're not talking about their balance sheet or their bank accounts. They're talking about and being grateful for or regretting the relationships they did or didn't have or fostered or didn't foster. It always comes down to the relationships. So it's great. What would you say? We've had an amazing conversation as far as the navigation through breakdowns and breakthroughs. Is there anything that you were, if you were to say a few things that really come up for you as how best to see a breakdown coming, navigate a breakdown?
Well, listen, I have had a lot of breakdowns, like a lot in my life. And what I've learned now in those breakdown moments, there's a reason for the breakdown. right? It's either you got too busy, or you're supposed to slow down and really see or feel something. And like my girlfriend just went through a breakup with her boyfriend, and I'm like, she's crying and she's exercising to get that energy out. And I'm like, Jen, just cry. Just be in it. You're going to have this feeling instead of running from it. Like, just sit in it for a minute and learn from it, because I just feel there's a higher power going like, okay, here's a lesson. I'm going to slow you down. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put the heaviness on you right now so you can slow down enough to feel it. I always tell my son, like, listen, if you start to feel flu, lay down. Your body's going, I need to rest. Well, emotions are the same way. Slow down, feel it, just be in it. And don't try and escape it.
Exactly. If you don't slow down, your body will slow you down.
Will slow you down. Or, especially with addiction is basically just escapism, honestly, right? Yeah. So honest to God, if you just sit in the feeling and go, okay, this is going to pass at some point. And then what happens is that next day or 2 days later, you get the aha, right? Or even a month, Listen, I had a really bad 2015. A lot of stuff hit me. I sold my business to a different partner, which ended up being great in the end, but it was very stressful. I lost my father-in-law to cancer, and he lived with us. I had a miscarriage, and me and my husband had like the hardest year marriage-wise. And literally that hit me in 1 year. But I am so grateful for every single thing, because I got down, and I as soon as kind of things settled, I got really tired and almost, you would say, depressed, where like I kind of watched Netflix for 2 weeks. But I have to tell you, that was such a great place to be in the down moment, even though it didn't feel good during the time, because my upswing was so great. And I learned so much from all of that we're not invincible, that we are fragile, that there's light at the end. So we're all going to have peaks and valleys. And the valleys you just need to kind of sit in and learn from. And the peaks you need to enjoy and go, woohoo! This is awesome, because I know the valley is maybe tomorrow. You don't know, right?
Well, when you say peaks and valleys, I completely agree. I think anybody listening to this would agree. The ebbs, the flows. I think that the thing for me that helps is, and this is tricky, and it's not always easy, is really working on not adding too much meaning to either of them. Mm-hmm. That when I'm in the pit of despair, don't label it as the pit of despair. Mm-hmm. When I am having an incredible career, high, it's not because I'm all that in a bag of chips.
Right.
It's just what's so. It's happening. Yeah. It's really tough though, because human beings love to label. We love to compare. Okay, I'm feeling better now because my external circumstances look good. Mm-hmm. Or if I'm in my valley, I'm less than, I'm not good, I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It's just the meaning that we're adding to both of these circumstances. And I feel for me, freedom comes when I remind myself not to add additional, unnecessary, disempowering meaning to either.
Well, and I think we're taught that it's just always supposed to be good. It's not, not, like that's the thing. Like I look at, now that I've traveled around the world, first off, we are so lucky. We won the lottery living in this country. I travel around the world, and it's rough. There's but I have to say, like, some of the places that I go, whoa, this is poverty. And I go into where they're people, they're happy people, and I'm like, but I just think too, we're taught, especially in America, like it's always supposed to be like achieving, material things, and we're always supposed to be happy. That is not reality. Reality is you're going to have ups and downs in your life. That's just life.
Yeah.
You know, and so just accepting where you are at that moment and then going like, well, tomorrow may be different, you know?
Yeah. I think what I take away from what you've been sharing is the ability to practice acceptance.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in a nutshell, you know, it really is, I think, just being in gratitude and being in acceptance.
Yeah.
And it's easy to forget to do those things because the world can be very noisy.
Yeah.
But, you know, if we can surround ourselves with people who share that same sort of philosophy, ideally, and will hopefully remind us when we forget that we have the opportunity to live a very fulfilling life, a very happy or let's say joyful life.
Yeah, for sure. And just be grateful that we get this tour. You know, because if you look at, like, I've been watching a lot of space shows, there's not a lot of Earths around that we know of. They haven't found one yet. So have fun while you're here. Enjoy nature because it's remarkable. And just enjoy this journey as much as you can. And when the pain happens, learn from it, grow from it, be in it. You know, try not to escape it. And then, you know, hopefully the next day you'll have a better day.
Agreed. Very much agreed. Well, Kate, been such a pleasure talking with you. You know, we talked about this when I first asked you to do the interview, and, you know, we had this amazing conversation on the phone, and I'm so glad we were able to have another one.
I know. Well, it's funny because I remember talking to you when we were in Vegas and hearing your story. Yeah. And, you know, being from an alcoholic that didn't make it out, right? You know, and we were having a good time in Vegas and watching you, you know, manage that. It was so impressive. And I give so much kudos to you that you found your way out of that. And, you know, you've led your family to where you guys are now. And, you know, it's pretty awesome that you went through that. And then your story, when you met your addiction was, to me, like, I'm like, you have to tell this story. Like, it'll help so many people. And, here we are today. So it's awesome. Yeah.
That was really, honestly, that was the seed, you know. I mean, I've been in recovery for, you know, many years, you know, over 5 years now. And the ability to be in the rooms and to share with people and listen to other people's sharing is really what inspired me to do this podcast, along with your suggestion that, you know, the story was inspiring to you. But to be able
so inspiring for me because I didn't get the opportunity for my mom to get well. Yeah. And like, even just seeing you get well was like, wow, there's hope, you know, for people to get well.
I mean, in a quick recap, basically we all went to Vegas, carte blanche, 4 days. Like anything and everything was available.
Oh my gosh, carte blanche. Like, I've never experienced such carte blanche.
Anything and everything, food, booze, entertainment, you name it. And as somebody who spent many years prior to my sobriety enjoying those things in my life, to then be in the situation where I'm with a group of like 16 adults and everyone is enjoying it to its fullest. With the libations included. And I was in a space of obviously choosing to practice my sobriety. You know, it was so wild to be like a fly on the wall and just, not even so much a fly on the wall because I did participate. I was present. I didn't detach.
You were present the whole time. That's what I loved about it. You were with all of us drunks, which I'm just going to say. And let me give you kudos here, because Dylan, your wife, was one of the most. And you were so kind to her. You're like, okay, like, you took care of her during that time. And I literally was in awe watching you guys. And that's love, right? You were like, go for it, girl. And you took care of her. And I was like, how does he have the strength to do that? Like, it's pretty impressive. And I you know, listen, I don't know how you did that, but you did it, and it was beautiful, you know, and it's just impressive. So,
well, I appreciate that. Well, thank you. And, you know, again, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk to me. I'm sure that the people listening are going to have a great time learning more about you, your background, And it was just really an inspiring conversation, so I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and I had fun.
Stay tuned for more episodes of Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy. Check out my website at breakthroughswithjordanmurphy.com. Stay connected on Instagram at JordanMurphy1025 and Twitter at JordanDMurphy. And if you have a great story to share, as I'm sure many of you do, go to my website at breakthroughswithjordanmurphy.com and shoot me an abbreviated version of your story to my email. I'll give it a read and maybe share a couple of them on the show.